Greetings, comic book fans. I'm Jason. It is the 12th of September 2017 at time of recording, and you are watching Comic Book Overload. Every week, I go and spend far too much money on comics. I read those comics and end up with an overload of opinions on my brain. This is where I come to download the overload and share with you my opinions on some of the books I've read in the last 7 days. So I've picked out 7 books to talk about today. I'm going to kick things off with the book I was most anticipating last week. It is Green Arrow, issue number 30. This is published by DC Comics, written by Benjamin Percy, with art by Otto Smith. Now, first things first, I've been a big fan of Juan Ferreira, who does the art on this. And so, like, when I saw he wasn't on it, initially I was disappointed until I opened up the book and saw how delightful the art was. I'd forgotten how good Otto Smith is. And it's one of the strengths of this book is that we've got 2 great artists. So it doesn't matter whose turn it is on the book. Every issue is going to look great. We kick off with a really fun, action-packed open with Oliver Queen, Green Arrow in action, taking out the bad guys. He then meets up with Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and this is the reason I was looking forward to this book, because I've been reading Green Arrow since the 80s. And one of the big things was always his friendship with Hal Jordan. They'd been a team. I think it was in the 70s, they had a team-up book, and had a really good run as far as I know. And so that was always a thing. The first proper Green Lantern book I read was Green Lantern Rebirth, and Oliver Queen played a big part of that story, and because their friendship was so big. So when the New 52 came in and they hated each other, you could kind of put up with that if that was going to build to them eventually becoming friends, but it didn't. And so that was one of the big disappointments for me, and one of the things that we lost with the New 52. And I'm glad of like the things they're trying to put right with Rebirth, that this is one of the things that they've chosen now to kind of get round to, and we're going to put this right. And so what we get this issue is a team-up issue. Hal has heard about how Oliver has changed from the other heroes that he's teamed up with on this story arc. So he's going to give him another chance, and kind of like they have a bit of a heart-to-heart when they first meet up. And it was just really glorious to see the 2 characters in the same book again and not hating each other. They team up, and it's really interesting seeing the differences and the similarities, and it was a lot. I just really enjoyed this. I had a stupid grin on my face the whole way through it. I just absolutely loved the team up. I also like kind of, you get the glimpse of where this is going to go, which I'm liking. We also get to check in on Star City, and as Black Canary and Emiko walk into a trap. So everything's kind of really building. So I'm even more psyched for the next issue now. I really enjoyed this, and I would give Green Arrow issue number 30 9 out of 10. So next up we have Spider-Man issue number 20. This is written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Nico Leone, published obviously by Marvel Comics. And this issue, kind of after the big heart-to-heart Miles and Yankee had last issue, Miles decides to go to Japan, and I love that. I love the whole setting of Japan. I've never been there. It's always one of the places I've wanted to visit because the place seems so fascinating. And so anytime I see it in any kind of TV show or fiction, I'm just like really interested to kind of see what it's like in that. So I love that they set it in Japan. The open as well really plays out like a James Bond film with Miles getting all dressed up and going to this like bar and all double agents and stuff. It brilliant opening, and then kind of the rest of the book is kind of showing us how we got to where the book started from. So it's all cool, all good in the hood. There's also in here we have some really cool adverts for Legacy. I like the way that they've done them for the Legacy books. There's a real retro feel to how they've done these adverts, advertising the different books that they've got coming out. So I'm a big fan of what they're doing there with Legacy, and certainly the vibe I'm getting from the Legacy books so far is something that I'm looking forward to. The character in this book of Yankee is just awesome, and one of the best characters in comics right now. I love his text conversations throughout the issue with Miles, but also the heart-to-hearts he have and the truth that he gives to Miles. And we've still got things like Layla being in love with Miles. We've got like what's happened to Golden Balls. We've got Hammerhead. All these things still building in the background. But we kind of take a time out going to Japan. And I just really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And another great issue. And I'd give issue 20 of Spider-Man 8 out of 10. So next up we go with a blast from the past. We have The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 273, published in 1985 by Marvel Comics. Written by Tom DeFranco with art by Ron Fries. And the reason I read this book this week, this was the first Spider-Man comic I bought. I bought a UK comic before this, but like with the proper style American comics, this was the first issue of Spider-Man I bought. I bought it because it was a Secret Wars 2 tie-in as a kid, and Secret Wars, one of that, and Transformers were the two first comics I bought regularly, and that was like the UK versions of those books. But those were the first two comics I bought regularly. So to see, so when I saw this book, I was like, oh, the Beyonder, what's happening here? So that's the whole reason I picked this issue up. The reason I picked now to read it is I'm trying to, at the moment, because like eBay is so great for being able to find old issues. Sometimes you have to shop around and wait until you find it at the right price, but it's still such a great place to find issues. Because like back in the day, unless your local comic shop had the issues you needed, there was no way to get the back issues, you know. Where now with that, it just makes it so great to get back issues and so easy. So I'm trying to kind of plug in my gaps of my Spider-Man collection. So I thought I'd not read any of these books since I was a kid, so I thought it was a great excuse as I'm plugging the gaps to kind of start reading it as a complete run. So I decided I was going to start off with the very first Spider-Man comic I ever bought, and I really enjoyed it. It was really great and reminded me of all the things that I loved about Spider-Man. First things first, we introduced this character, Puma. Real name is Thomas Fireheart. He's a Native American, and his tribe kind of think that the Beyonder is this big evil that's come to destroy the Earth, and they choose Puma to go and to finish him. Puma doesn't really believe in all the superstitions, but it's his tribe, and he's going to honor them and their wish. And he kind of thinks the Beyonder's no big deal because he doesn't know the Beyonder yet. He tries to enlist Spider-Man to help him. We get a really good introduction to Puma, who he is, what he can do, and also to like that he'd met Spider-Man previously. I think it was like a year earlier that he'd had an encounter with Spider-Man. So he goes to enlist Spider-Man's help. Spider-Man, of course, knows the Beyonder, knows what the dude can do, and he doesn't want no part of trying to kill the Beyonder. Also, there's the fact that the Beyonder hasn't actually done anything yet, and he doesn't want to kill somebody when they've not actually done anything wrong. So he kind of bows out, and Puma goes it alone. And kind of like the whole issue is like Puma's quest and him trying to get Spider-Man to join this quest to take out the Beyonder. In the background, we have everyday stuff going on, and this is one of the reasons that I loved Spider-Man. Is like we've got this whole kind of deal going on with, I think it's Betty, and she's having an affair, and her husband works in the same workplace, and Spider-Man knows of this affair, and he kind of feels really awkward because he knows about this, and it's that kind of drama that you get in everyday life, and I like that you've got this superhero stuff going on, but it's kind of balanced out, and you kind of like, as somebody who was a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I can kind of see where the influences a lot for that came from, with Josh Whedon being a big Marvel fan, and particularly of the X-Men, I believe. But you can see how, like, with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, how you had her doing all these things like fighting vampires, but then you had regular high school stuff. And in this book, it's just the same. Spider-Man's living, Peter Parker's living a regular life. But like at the same time, he's doing these extraordinary things as Spider-Man. Another wrinkle that I forgot to mention that I liked is Puma, because he's got this really great sense of smell. He and can pick up people's scent. He knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and I like that wrinkle, that the way he knows it, because he's got this great sense of smell. That was another great wrinkle. And really easy to follow, enjoyable story. Nothing major happens, but it's engaging and interesting all the way along. Really enjoyed this. I'd give Amazing Spider-Man issue number 273 7 out of 10. Really enjoyed that. So next up we have Doctor Who: The Lost Dimension number 2. This is a Ninth Doctor special. It is written by Kevin Scott with art by Andrea Mello and Chris Brosnan. And it's a good story that I feel like initially there's certain things that don't make sense, but as the story goes on, everything kind of resolves itself and makes sense. And one of the things I loved about this is it felt like just a regular Doctor Who story, and then at the end it ties in to what went on in the first issue of Lost Dimension. So I liked that, how like it reminded me like of the TV show where they'd have an ongoing arc like the first season with the mentions of Bad Wolf and how it plays out throughout all the episodes and kind of comes good at the end. And this is they go the same track here. So this really interesting story of the Ninth Doctor and Rose and Madame Vastra on a pirate ship discovering this island with this lost tribe of Silurians, and Vastra being really angry at the Doctor that he never told her that she thought she was the last of their kind, and he never told her that there were other Silurians out there. So you've got this, and really, and you kind of thinking, why would the Doctor do that? And it kind of all makes sense at the end, when it all ties into a main story. So really good stuff, really good fun story. Really good to see Madame Vastra, but I didn't realise she went that far back with the Doctor that she knew the Ninth Doctor. I thought it was the 11th that had saved her, but obviously, it was a previous incarnation of the Doctor, which I never picked up. I'm going to have to go back and watch the episode where we first meet Vastra and see if it's kind of stated there, because I never realised that. The only thing that lets this issue down is the art, and I don't know if it's because the two artists, but the art like changes and is really rough in places, where there's a real lack of detail, and yeah, and that really hurt the book. Otherwise, it was a really strong issue. And also we have cameos again. We have the Fourth Doctor and the original Silurians in this issue, so some great cameos again. Art, like I say, does let it down, but overall a really enjoyable read, and I give issue 2 of The Lost Dimension 8 out of 10. So next up, we're going back a few weeks now, to Generations, the Phoenix, picking up on Jean Grey meeting the original Phoenix. It is written by Cullen Bunn with art by R.B. Silver, published by Marvel Comics. And I really enjoyed this. It was a fun story. It made a lot more sense going into it, having read issue 10 of Secret Empire, where it kind of explains about the vanishing point and what's going on here. So that kind of, when I went into the story, I think I went into it happier than previous ones I'd read, where previous ones had to kind of win me over because I was confused, didn't know what was going on. This one now knowing what's going on as I go into the story, I'm kind of a bit more open, and it's a bit easier for the book to win me over. Saying that, I did enjoy the story. I like the team up. There's some really bonkers moments, like where we get the Phoenix battling Galactus, which is just bonkers and glorious all at the same time. And we get to see the best and the worst of the Phoenix. And all through the issue, Jean is kind of haunted by this decision that should she tell Phoenix what's going to happen to her about the Dark Phoenix and about everything that's going to follow, or should she not? Because it's trying to totally change everything. So there's a really big choice for Jean, and the issue kind of builds to her decision as she's kind of all through the issue debating, what should I do, what should I do? The art is a bit of a mixed bag in this. There was moments I really loved the book. There were moments I was kind of a bit, but overall, I just really enjoyed this, and it was a great installment of Generations, and I'd give Generations the Phoenix 8 out of 10. So next up, a book I'm trying out. This came out, I think, last month. It is Iron Fist, issue number 6. I was tempted to pick this up when it originally came out, but I didn't. But then I saw that by when it originally, I meant the first issue. I was going to pick up because I'd read the previous run and I'd liked that. And I was kind of in two minds, but I didn't in the end. But then I saw this issue had Shang-Chi in, so I thought I'm going to try that. Shang-Chi is a character I know from the UK version of Action Force, which is what G.I. Joe was called in the UK, and they had their own UK comic Action Force, and the backup in it was Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. So he's a character I know from that. So I always, whenever I see him in a book, I always kind of pick the book to just kind of see what Shang-Chi is up to. So this issue we get a team up. Somebody has put a hit out, a bounty on Iron Fist's head. Shang-Chi turns up to warn him about it, but not before the Sight have caught up to him. The Sight are this cruel group of villains, and there's this character called the Seer, and he can take over people. Similar in some ways to the Purple Man, but works slightly different. But he can take over multiple people, and they become his like obedient servants. So basically, he's got this army of brainwashed people that are like willing to do anything for him. And so he sets this army against Iron Fist, and Shang-Chi turns up to help him out as they try and get answers into who has put the bounty on Iron Fist's head. I really enjoyed this. It was loads of action, loads of kung fu fun. The site made for a great group of villains because you suddenly had this villain who has this army for them to fight through. So it just they made great villains with this style of book. Um, I love, like I say, I love the team up with Shang-Chi. Also was interesting in the version of Iron Fist that they wrote, because I found, like, I'm not a long time reader, but from the few that I've read, he can either be like an angsty kind of serious kind of character, or he can be a more comedic character. So like in Power Man and Iron Fist, we got the more comedic side, where we got the more badass, angsty kind of side in the last Iron Fist series. So it was, what was we going to get this time? And we kind of get a balance of the two. He's badass. We don't see no angst yet, but he's badass. He's badass, but at the same time, he's dropping a lot of jokes and a lot of one-liners to the point where Shang-Chi even comments like, "Are you always this noisy?" But like I said, I really enjoyed this. I'm going to check this out. The previous arc finished the issue before this, so this is the start of a new arc. So you can just jump in, easy to follow and understand. And if you like your kung fu, this is definitely a book to try out. And I give Iron Fist issue number 6 8 out of 10. So our final book this week, it is a book from a month ago. For some reason, it wasn't on my order, so I had to pick it up last week. It is XMen, Astonishing XMen, that is, issue number 2. And this last issue kind of set why the team came together. This issue, they've gone into this realm, mind realm, where the mindscape, where they're going to battle the Shadow King and try and stop him. And kind of the first stage of that is that they are tempted by all of these things, these visions of like things that they really want, and to kind of try and trap them so Shadow King can kind of gain control over their bodies in real life. And so that's the kind of the first half of the story, as they kind of are tempted by these things and come to the slow realization that this isn't real. But is it too late? So I like this. I enjoyed this. I like this team. I like this balance of characters. I think it's really good. We get an interesting reveal that I didn't totally understand, but it was cool to see that character turn up, and the dynamics between the team once again changes. Like I say, I'm just really enjoying this, and there's some interesting things developing in the story. We've got the Shadow King, but the character that he's got trapped with him, I'm very curious to find out what's happening there. We also have stuff in the real world because they're in London, and kind of the authorities aren't going to sit back for a long time because they're trying to decide, are these characters, are they being villains or are they being heroes? And there feels like there's something going to happen there. But yeah, I enjoyed this, and definitely going to stick with this. This is definitely right now my favourite X-Men book. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed where we're going with the story. It's very interesting. And the thing about setting it in the mindscape is it's a really great story for kind of like imagination, because you can kind of take it anywhere, and it can get bizarre, it can get strange, it can get really fun as well. So I'm really intrigued with where they're going to go with all that, and what's next for our X-Men as they kind of try and make their way down. And kind of at the moment, they're kind of thinking, because Shadow King's playing a game against this other character that I don't want to spoil who he is, but it turned up at the end of the first issue. And the X-Men kind of believe that this character's on their side, and we kind of get the reveal that he may not be on their side as much as they first thought. in this issue. So it's intriguing how the X-Men are going to get out of this, and where this is going to go is very intriguing. But yeah, I enjoyed this, and so I would give Astonishing X-Men issue number 2 8 out of 10. So those are my reviews for another week. I will be back hopefully tomorrow with a Comic Haul video, Comic Haul weekly video, and then I'll be back at some point over the next 2 weeks with another comic book overload. Apologies to anyone who's left comments on my videos. I've been really slack. I'm hoping to get to them ASAP. Bad Jason, I need to be better at that. But thank you to everyone who's left comments on my videos. I greatly appreciate it. That's me pretty much done. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching my video. I've been Jason. This has been Comic Book Overload. Keep reading, and bye for now.